Hi, I'm Rich Lee, and this is Uncommon.
Uncommon is a production by Neuralle, an agency that helps both brands and talent tell their story. To learn more, just visit neuralle.com. That's neuralle.com. My guest this week is Rich Lee, co-founder of both Brosa and July Luggage as well. Rich, we're just quickly chatting about the little icebreaker I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you got to Australia.
Very good question. I think I came to Australia when I was 16 years old.
Okay.
I remember having this conversation with my parents at the age of 15, and I said, hey, Mom and Dad, I want to move to Australia. And they were like, why? I said, I just thought, Australia could be a good country for me. My personality was not suitable for the Chinese education system because students hate me, my classmates hate me, my teachers hate me because I would always stand out and just say, you did this wrong. I don't think that's right. And I always got myself into big troubles. Yeah. And one day the teachers just say, you know what, I don't think you're suitable for my school. And that was the time that I said to my parents, I think probably going overseas is something more suitable for me.
Where did you grow up?
I was born and raised on a cargo ship for the first 6 years of my life.
Wow.
Yeah. So I never had a house or a place, a permanent place I live in, and I just grew up on a boat. Then at the age of 6 or 7. And my parents reckoned that probably it's time for me to go to school. We settled in one city. It's a little town, very small town, close to Shanghai.
Okay.
And that town, I would say 90% of Chinese have never heard about. It's a very small town.
Really?
Yeah.
How many people would live there?
Well, when I say small town...
Small for China.
Small for China,
yeah.
1 million.
Yeah, that's pretty small.
Yeah, pretty small for China,
small
right?
Yeah.
Because Shanghai is about 25 million people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you get cities with nowadays 40, 50 million people.
Correct.
So yeah, that's like, that would be like living in a regional town in Victoria.
Correct.
So explain the whole cargo ship thing to me. Where do your parents hail from? Which part of China? Why? How did they get into the business of working on cargo ships?
Yeah, I think my parents are the ultimate grassroots entrepreneurs in China. My dad never worked in a company, never. My mom has always been a housewife her entire life.
Okay.
So, neither of them has worked in a company entire life, and they never really got educated. I think both my parents probably combined 5 years of primary school education combined. So maybe 2 or 3 years, 2 years for my dad and 3 years for my mom, something like that. So
wow.
they are the ultimate grassroots, entrepreneurs. And my dad started doing business when doing business was still illegal in China.
Right.
So in the 70s or 80s, free market was not a thing in China. It was illegal. And my dad would... Both my parents are from, I think more like a central part of China. It's a very rural province or rural city.
Which province?
It's called Anhui province.
Okay.
It's very, very rural at the time. I think now it's developed quite well. I haven't been back for ages. So my dad would take the pork from his village to Shanghai and sell pork.
Yeah, right.
Then bring back, garments from the big city back to his village to sell. That was considered to be illegal, but that was the things that he was doing.
Yeah, right.
The first, maybe 5 years or 10 years of his life. Then one day he decided to do coal shipping business.
Coal
shipping, yeah. He decided to do that. He bought a cargo ship. Borrowed money and bought a cargo ship and start buying coal and selling coal and transport them. And that was it. And because that, he used all his savings plus borrowed a lot of money to buy a boat. Of course, all the kids start living on the boat.
Yeah, right.
And we have a lot of kids as well. I'm from a family of, 5 kids. So I'm like the third child in the family. We all, lived on that boat.
Yeah, right. So your parents must have been born So they must have been born in like the 50s or 60s or something like that?
Correct. Yeah.
They went through, holy crap, because I'm fascinated by the history of China. I just read a really interesting book. It was actually the history of the CCP, but that period that you spoke about where your parents went from
small village,
being in a small village to that coal business. At the end of the day, I don't know if it was I think it was the late 70s is when the US finally recognized China.
Yeah.
It was that liberalization of...
Yeah, Richard Nixon time.
That's it.
Yeah.
Richard Nixon, and I'm pretty sure, was it Deng Xiaoping?
Deng Xiaoping and Mao Zedong at the time.
Yeah. So he was the guy, like he was a really good... when I think about it, he's probably like the best leader that China's had.
Yeah.
Because he liberalized a lot of areas, and at that point, it was sort of like, it was game over. Like,
he opened up the market. Yeah, correct.
Entrepreneurship was just going to be a part of Chinese life. Because I think I've heard this recently. Everywhere you go in the Chinese diaspora, the bartering, trading tradition is just like something that's been around for centuries.
Correct.
So to try and like push that down is like really, really hard.
Correct.
I think it's like a cultural thing that you just can't get rid of. So that must have been fascinating for them. Yeah,
for sure. Because for me, or my siblings, we grew up from being super poor to where we are now. I would say we are living in, all of us, and including my parents, were living in a very comfortable life. That's a massive difference, almost from hell all the way to heaven. I remember my parents were telling me, I can't really remember this, but when I was growing up, we would only eat meat once a month, or maybe like once several months. You would eat Chinese cabbages like for a very long time. The same thing again for a very long time.
Yeah.
So it was difficult, but now, then my parents' life, that's even worse, because my dad, during the 50s and 60s, there was basically no food. I can't remember exactly how many people. I think
it was like 10 to 20 million people died.
Because no food.
Yeah. The great leap forward.
Correct. Yeah. That was it, and that was my parents' era at the time.
Wow. And to survive that, and to know, like, so
my grandma died because of that. My grandma, my father's mom died because of hunger. I think when my dad was 7 years old.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it was very, very difficult time.
Yeah, and you can imagine what that would do to people, now, like people would live in a totally different way because they've got that in the back of the mind. Like,
correct.
Could this happen again in future?
Correct. And so that's why, they because they've experienced that, they're very, very tough mentally and physically as well, because, like my parents, my dad would still wake up every morning, 3 or 4 a.m. and jog for 10 kilometers every morning. That's like him. I would never be able to do that, but my dad is like that kind of person.
Yeah, right. So he's like David Goggins. Just running insane hours.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
So where do your parents live now? Are they in China still, or they live here?
Yeah, pre-COVID, they would come to Australia once every year and just stay here for like a month or two, just to spend some time together. During COVID, obviously, it's impossible to travel here.
Yeah.
Now they're just in China.
Yeah.
With my other siblings, they're all like basically in the same city.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the middle, so third child.
Okay. So you're somewhat lucky. So you don't have the
I'm the oldest son, though.
Oh, you're the oldest son.
So that's in, I think, Chinese or Asian families.
Top tier responsibility.
Correct.
Okay, so they're always looking to you for things.
That's right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I normally ask a lot of guests, like, what's a lesson that's stuck with them from their parents? And it's sort of obvious to me that when you grew up in that environment, when you're living, sleeping, breathing around your parents' work, hard work would be that ethos. So, and I spoke to Zoe about this, and she said, for me to ask to you, what's sort of been the biggest life lesson that you've learned in the last decade?
In the last decade, not the time when I was in China, right? Last decade, I think the lesson I learned, in general, is that I think Australian living in Australia is very, very lucky. And many people take things for granted. I think living in Australia means a lot of opportunities. We always say this in Australia: if you work just a little bit harder than other people, you will make a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what I learned the most. So that's why I think that's how I started doing business and start building brands, because if you just do a little bit smarter, work a little bit harder, you can make something big.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think we're a very rich country.
Yeah.
But we're also very relaxed, and so it gives the individual who is hardworking the opportunity to really shine. I would agree with that. I've got an immigrant family, very like that hardworking immigrant mentality.
That's right. Yeah.
It's very like Lauren was really surprised by this when we first started dating, but all of my aunties and uncles own and run businesses together. Always family business.
Yeah.
So it's always really interesting when we catch up with friends and they're like, oh, how do you run your business together? How do you go with that?
Yeah.
We're like, what do you mean? This is life.
I think family play a very important role in many people's entrepreneurial journey. If you look at the top e-commerce people in Australia, Russell Kogan from I think Russian immigrant family, and then Gabby and Hezi, catcher of the day guys, from Israel. They're all like immigrants, I think. I mean, I'm not saying every successful entrepreneur is from immigrant family, but I say.
But there's a strong.
There is a strong
contingent there. Very, very strong.
Correct.
And so the next generation of people like yourself.
That's why I told my wife, because I recently got a little girl. She just turned 5 months old, right? So I told my wife that when she's a little bit older, I would take her to the factories. I would take her to the negotiation table so that she can learn. So she can appreciate all the things that we're doing.
I would,
because that's what my dad did as well.
Yeah, same. Yeah, and I would strongly encourage that. And now I have things today where so my dad's a printer. He's always been in print.
Yeah.
He actually he'd traveled to Germany a lot, and he was one of the first sort of print manufacturers to go to China, sort of like around the GFC, maybe a little bit before.
Yeah.
So he'd go see the big paper mills, because paper is like the biggest issue.
Yeah.
In the industry is that, you've got like basically a duopoly here, or maybe a monopoly of like one paper manufacturer. Yeah. Anyway, so I always have this thing of like, if walking into a print factory, the smell of fresh paper to this day I don't know what it is. It's like I'm getting a massage.
Yeah.
Or like
you smell opportunity. You smell money.
I know. I smell something. There's some thing happening in my brain. Like some oxycontin is sort of just going around. I'm like, this is nostalgia. This is amazing.
Yeah.
But I would strongly recommend anyone who runs a business to do that with their kids, because it's also who you are.
Correct.
Like, I don't know. You should always make it a part of who you are, I think, because it is who you are when you run a business.
Yeah, 100%.
So early studies and career. First of all, why did you come to Australia? Why did you not go to America or the UK or something?
A very, very good, very good question. I think for a lot of students at that time, US would be the first top of the choice, right? But that was just after the 9/11 thing.
Oh, really?
Just after 9/11, because 9/11 happened, I think 2001, right?
Yeah.
And I came to Australia 2005. That was basically right after 2001. So obviously a lot of parents were worried that, okay, US might not be the safest place to then send the kids to. While Australia, actually, I had a foreign teacher at the time in my school. Actually, she was from Melbourne. And I just remember she was super nice. She was telling a lot of nice things about Australia. And then, Australia just became the place for me to go. And because at that time, I had never been to a beach, and I never knew, I knew that Australia is very big with beaches, so that's why I came to Australia.
Did you come to Sydney or Melbourne first?
Actually, the first choice was Gold Coast. So I enrolled in school in Gold Coast, and 1 week or 2 weeks before my arrival, they told me that the school was full. Now I can only put you in Brisbane. So I went to Brisbane to study.
Wow.
Studied my school. So I did. I spent a couple of years in Brisbane before I moved down to Melbourne.
Wow.
And then the other reason why I chose Queensland was that I asked my agent at the time, tell me a place that's still nice, but not that many Chinese because I want to learn English. When I first came here, my English was really shit because all the things I learned back in China was all like deaf mute English. You know, you look.
It's whenever you look at a book, it's not conversational.
Correct. Yeah. And I would say I was really shit with my spoken English at the time.
Yeah.
And I learned over the years.
Yeah. That's actually a problem. It's so funny because there's people like, I've got a lot of friends in the Chinese community, but they're all just like, they're not mainland Chinese. They're from the Chinese diaspora, so Malaysian, Singaporean.
Correct. Yeah.
And there's like this constant beef, not beef, but frustration they have with the mainland Chinese community because they come here, and this is mainly in Melbourne and Sydney.
Correct.
They come here, they're studying, obviously, but they don't intermingle with anyone else because there's so many from the mainland that they don't have to really learn English.
Correct. And then they just have their own little
they have their own little clique.
Yeah, that's why.
And you know, they look at people who are not like that if they're from Malaysia and Singapore.
Correct.
Like
they were like, oh, you're the
other
Asian
ones.
group, you know, not the Chinese group.
Yeah, so it's so funny.
I definitely agree with that. Agree with that.
And so that's a really smart choice because you could have easily really fallen into that. And foreigners like Australians fall into that. I notice like a lot of my friends, they go to London.
Yeah.
They just hang out with other Australians.
Correct.
What's the fucking point?
Exactly. Then like, you don't learn the culture. You're not really immersing yourself into the
way of life.
The way of life. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a really poor choice.
Yeah.
So that is quite interesting. I know you obviously attended Melbourne Uni, Bachelor of Commerce.
Yeah.
Started selling products on eBay when you couldn't find a gig after uni. What exactly were you selling on eBay?
Well, I was selling a lot of things. I was selling, gadgets. I was selling pet beds, all kinds of stuff. Initially, I was just kind of like guessing what product will sell, what product not going to sell. Because at that time, I don't know if now you can still do it, but at that time, you can see the top bids, products with the top bids on eBay. I don't think you can do it now, but at that time you can. And you can sort of see
of software that does it now.
So at that time you can see on eBay what products get the most attention, the most bids. We just chose those products. Then later we discovered a website, a software called Terapeak, which is owned by eBay. It's a data software that they pull all the data from eBay. They tell you what product's selling, what product's trending, who are the top sellers, and then we just pick and choose a product from there.
Yeah.
And because being Chinese, I was able to go to China, source products, and buy directly from China, get the best price, and sell on eBay.
Yeah.
That was the first phase of my entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
And I became like big eBay seller for many categories.
So yeah, you would have had an information advantage at the time. You would have basically, because I think Alibaba, like anyone I speak to who's really serious in the e-commerce space, they always say that Alibaba is a bit of not a gimmick, but it's not the whole breadth of the situation in China. It's not like everyone, they start a factory and they have to fucking be on Alibaba.
Yeah.
There's other stuff there. And so this would have been, at the beginning of Alibaba, you would have probably had some insiders to, okay, it's this city, this town, which is known for manufacturing this plastic good or this pet bed or whatever. And so you can start calling around, finding people and getting price comparison.
That's right, definitely.
Yeah.
I think when we first started, we were looking at the products on eBay. Then the first thing we did was there was a C2C marketplace in China owned by Alibaba called Taobao.com. And we were just looking at the same products. What's the price difference? Very often you'll see the product here is about 5 to 6 times more expensive than the ones in China. So if you buy directly from Taobao, you're already making margin. But then when your volume grows, you can just find the manufacturer. And a lot of small products like pet beds or gadgets, most of them are made in one city in China called Yiwu. It's the hub for small consumer goods.
Okay.
So there's a stats. There's like the buttons on your clothes, right?
Like on a jacket.
The buttons. So I think 99.99% are manufactured in one city, one town in China, in the world, like basically.
Yeah.
And I went there very early on. I think I went there maybe at the age of 19 or 20. with at that time with the ex-girlfriend. We went there. We were just like sourcing products, and we spent days in an exhibition just looking at stuff.
Yeah.
It was so interesting.
It would have been so much fun because I remember my idea of fun in Hong Kong when Lauren and I went on a trip in sort of 2013 was let's go to this market, the electronic market. Let's go to the plastics market, and we just look at stuff.
Yeah,
just look at things. I remember buying like cameras that they had like a minor defect, like these they might have had on the lens like a tiny scratch.
Yeah,
and so they were marked down like 50%. I was like, fucking bargain. I remember buying like a Canon G7X and like laughing at my friends at home paying $1,000 for it, and I got it for like $400 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can imagine that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Talk me through the amount of time you spent selling stuff on eBay. Like, would you research a product, do that whole research process, and then tie it in with a flight back home each year? How would you sort of go about it?
Yeah. So we did a first sourcing trip in China. Then we knew that was a way to go. You know, basically buying directly from the factory and selling on eBay. Basically, whenever we need to place a massive order, we will go to China. I think at the time we were doing maybe 2 or 3 times a year at that time.
Yeah, right.
And we also
flying back then would have been cheap.
Yeah, I mean, cheap, but still expensive for small business, right?
Yeah.
But we were growing fast. We definitely grew fast because we hired an office on Circular Road. We hired the packer, basically packer.
Pick and pack.
Yeah, in the office.
So you did your own fulfillment and everything.
Yeah, we did everything ourselves.
Wow.
We did everything ourselves. 3PL or anything like that was still a foreign concept to us at the time.
So really, if you think about it, the fact that this is sort of part of that D2C movement. I wonder how much of D2C is people not being able to get a job in some sort of industry and just working it out themselves with the tools that they had. Because if you think about it, some of those principles that you would have developed at that age before you got into Brosa in July have really permeated and expanded in other ways. Like the fact that you yourself would always go to China.
Yeah.
I noticed that was obviously a key principle.
Yeah.
The fulfillment, or let's call it last mile fulfillment of actually getting it that last stage to the customer. Seems like you guys were handling it as much as possible, pick and pack, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that to me is really, really interesting. I'm curious with Brosa. Mm-hmm. So 2010 you finished uni, 2014 you found this business with your co-founders. You obviously identified that there was an opportunity in this category.
Yeah.
Why, I mean, we spoke about it before downstairs, I've purchased Brosa products. It's a no-brainer now in hindsight.
Yeah.
But at the time, you were running this business that was obviously making money.
Yeah.
Why did you think, okay, I'm only just going to go into one category rather than multiple and double down on that? That's a bit risky for someone like yourself.
Actually, it wasn't, because it was a very natural decision for us to make, or for me to make anyway at that time.
How so?
Because I was running, actually there was after I was doing eBay, but in 2010, something really big happened in the e-commerce world. Okay. It was the group buying era, if you remember, 2010.
Yeah.
So I got invited to be one of the first merchants or vendors for some of the biggest group buying sites in Australia. At that time, there was Groupon Australia, there's Scoopon, there was Catch of the Day, Deals, deals.com.au. It was so interesting because everyone was fighting for products, and we were growing so fast at the time because group buying sites would pay us upfront for us to buy products from China directly. Wow. Basically, at that time. It wouldn't happen now, but back then, what happened was this. You would love this as well. We would come up with a crazy idea. Yeah. We would come up with a crazy idea. For example, one of the products I did was cordless. I think steamers. Okay. Cordless steamer or iron. Basically iron your shirt or pants without the cord because it's battery powered, right? So we would find a factory. We'll find a couple of factories. We'll get some high-res images. We'll upload it to Groupon and sell it. We'll sell 2,000 units. Then we don't even have a product. And the Groupon will pay us. And then we go to China, we buy. Yeah. Wow. So that was, I did that for about 3 years.
Wow.
3 years. And we were one of the largest merchants for some of the deal sites.
Yeah.
Not just in Australia, but globally.
Yeah, right.
We were selling in 10 or more than 10 countries.
Okay.
And at that time, there were some categories very apparent to me was the biggest category for me.
Yeah.
One is furniture. Second was luggage. Number 3 was nail polish. There was also electronics.
Yeah.
So of all the categories that did really, really well for us, I wanted to get into a category that had the biggest high-ticket items.
Yeah.
That will get me to a $5 million, $10 million business a lot quicker than anything else.
Okay.
And the furniture was the most apparent one.
And did the negative cash flow component ever weigh into it? Because you would have built that idea
Correct.
during that group.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we obviously didn't want to put a lot of money into the business, and we wanted to bootstrap the business as well. And back in 2012 or 2013, VC was not a thing in Australia.
Yeah.
Not many VC.
No.
It was, you know what I mean? So we never thought that was an option. So we always thought that bootstrap was the only option to do something like that. So I remember we went to Church Street. We did a bit of research. What we found out is that traditional furniture brands, if you buy from all these brands, apart from IKEA, everything you have to wait. You have to wait anywhere between 10 and 20 weeks,
Okay.
depending on the product, depending on where the product coming from. And then you have to pay at least a deposit
Yeah.
or 100% upfront. We were like, fuck, that's a great business model. You take the money, you take people's money upfront, then you get things manufactured. We could do this ourselves through internet, not just showroom, but through internet. So we quickly set up a website. We upload a couple images, and images, product that we never had.
Yeah.
We actually didn't have any of the products.
Yeah.
And
Was it always called Brosa then?
Yeah, it was Brosa from day one.
Okay.
And Brosa means a smile in Icelandic.
Okay.
That's why.
Yeah.
And very quickly we got a couple sales for product we didn't have.
Yeah. Like, were you running Facebook ads or were you running pay-per-click ads?
At that time, we just did some SEM ads, Google ads at the time.
Yeah, right.
And we didn't, we were never big on Facebook ads.
Do you remember what the first sale was? What was the first
sofa.
item?
It was sofa.
Sofa.
I remember, because I remember very clearly what products, what pattern. I remember very, very clearly what products.
Yeah,
we made
right.
a couple sales and we're like, fuck, what now? What do we do now? So we had to, we basically scratch our heads. We're like, we'll have to make it work.
Yeah.
And at that time, I had no idea how a sofa is made.
Yeah, right.
So I went to a couple of manufacturers. So I got referred to a couple of manufacturers. I was asking them, I said, all right, I just sold a piece of sofa like this. Can I get it made? And they just laugh at me because clearly I had no idea how to manufacture a sofa. Because manufacturing sofa, you have to pick your fabric first, then you decide on the foam, you design the frame, the timber frame, you pick the legs. I had no idea, but I said, I don't care. I need to make this because I just sold a sofa like this. So we made it.
Yeah.
We made it. And this is very funny because I still remember the first, I think the first customer's name was like Taylor or something, Taylor. But anyway, in the end, I think it took a very long time for us to figure out how to make a piece of sofa. And I think 1 week before the product arrived, the customer just had to cancel it because it was way too long.
Yeah,
I think
right.
the first 2 customers ended up canceling the order. So that was the story. But it gave us a business.
It proved that there was a business there.
There was a business, proved the concepts.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter if you had to pay for the cost of the sofa.
Yeah,
because
correct.
You were just like, well, we know we've learned the entire process. Now you would have already, I'm sure you would have made sales after that, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
We were because we had to keep selling the product in order to fill up the container.
Yeah.
Because you can't just buy a couple sofas. You have to buy entire container.
Yeah.
And we just kept selling, and it was great because we were getting the money up front, then we pay for the stock, afterwards.
I got to say, this makes me smile because this is the fun stuff about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It's it's like fixing a really complex puzzle to a machine that makes money.
Yeah.
A really complex puzzle to a key to a machine that can make you money.
Correct.
And can dictate what you want to do with your life.
Correct.
Like it reminds me of when we were starting our business early. We're still obviously nowhere near what Brosa has done, but it's that same excitement that I get is like, it's like, okay, this thing we've learned from this process. This is how I do it in future. And then you do it and it's so much better and people are like so much happier and it's just, it's the best feeling, I reckon.
For sure. I think the business, the business evolved over time, from from initially a 100% made to order business to today, we call it just-in-time business model because we have products in stock, we have products on water, we have products that are being manufactured right now. So depending on your requirements, individual item, and we have different lead time.
Yeah.
And obviously we use machine learning. We have past sales data. We know what product will sell well, what products don't sell well, and
You, yes you. Are you intrigued by this episode? If so, go to our footer on the website, neuralle.com, neuralle.com. We're going to give you an insight. Each week it's going to be on business, marketing, or a topic that we covered in the episode. At all, we would love your support and it would help us in developing the intellect around this series. But without going on too much longer, let's get back into this episode. I'm guessing you're still on the board of the company?
Yes, I am.
So would you see and speak to people on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis?
Well, I mean, I'm very super inactive in the business now because
of course.
I'm just sitting on the board. As I'm still a shareholder of the business. I spend like a few hours on the board meeting, every quarter. That would be it. My focus still in July.
Of course, yeah. But you still get that insight at least. You still got some way of getting some insight.
Yeah, for sure.
So July, let's talk about that. We've interviewed Ethan before, if anyone wants to listen to it. We've interviewed Zoe now for the Marketer series.
Yeah.
I learned, obviously, in my interview with Ethan that he was running 3,000 Thieves at the time. You guys met at this cafe.
Yeah.
You obviously had been chatting about something and then this idea of luggage came up. I think for Ethan at the time, it was the fact that he'd gone to DJs or something like that and thought like this process is shit. But it seems now in hindsight, you already had those 4 categories in your mind.
Yeah.
So at some point, that conversation just plugged.
Correct. Yeah.
And I guess I was just curious, like, what did you see in Ethan as a potential co-founder that sort of clicked with you?
Yeah. Ethan's skill set definitely like complement my skill set. I think we work really, really well together, and the stuff he does, I can do.
Yeah.
And stuff I do, he can do.
That's
basically.
what I would have guessed. Yeah.
And above that, he's just a great person to hang out with as well.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about, because doing business at the end of the day is not just about making money, it's about having fun together.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of fun, even talking to him early days. And that's why I thought he's a great person to work with.
Yeah. What's he taught you about, because this is like us Greeks, we always get very philosophical. What's he taught you about life so far? Any imparted wisdom, indirectly or directly?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot. I mean, I started Brosa. I learned a lot about building business and building a brand. But working with him, I learned that sometimes you don't sacrifice your brand over some short-term gain. For example, sure, we can do a campaign, we can do a sale, we get a lot of revenue, but then you're sacrificing your long-term brand equity.
Yeah.
That's what I learned a lot from him. And sometimes he's sometimes he's always right about the branding elements. That's why that's what I learned a lot from him.
Yeah, so he's very long-term brand focused.
That's right.
Which would make sense because he's had that insight of working for a bunch of different brands as a strategist.
Yes.
And he would have seen the folly of people wanting those short-term gains.
Yeah.
And that is good because, like I said, I think that was the thing that I guess at the time you guys have very different skill sets. The same thing with Lauren and I. I couldn't do what she does. She couldn't do what I do
and that's
at
the
all.
best.
It's
That's the best. It's the best because
you don't step on each other's toes.
Correct.
It marries together pretty well.
Yeah.
And I can't really think of a time where it hasn't proved incredibly useful.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
I found it funny that you initially blocked Felicity McGann on Instagram.
Yeah.
I think the story goes that you thought they were like fishing for some intel or something like that.
Yeah.
I'd say Strand Bags, I think they invested 2019. What do you reckon they've, or particularly Felicity, has imparted to you guys at a business level?
Yeah. They are great people to work with, especially Felicity. She's got a lot of experience in retail. I think she was the VP of marketing at Gap in North America.
Yeah.
North America, and she was the general manager of was Cotton On? No, not Cotton On. Was Cotton On.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Cotton On.
I was looking at her profile the other day.
Yeah, correct.
Very big retail. Brands.
Yeah. So we just learned so much because there's stuff that we were doing, but we had no idea how well we're doing, and we didn't have any benchmarking. For example, what is the retail staff wage over revenue in the retail store as benchmark? That's the sort of stuff that she would tell us.
Yeah.
And what is a good performance in the retail store, and how do you do training properly?
Yeah.
So they definitely brought on a lot of industry expertise and to the business. At the same time, they're not telling us what to do. They just
And you've told them things as well. Like I think I read an interview that she was shocked that you guys had Ubered cases to customers. She was like, "Oh, didn't really think about that." And it's a no-brainer when you have an item that's worth, an LTV worth $1,000.
Yeah.
What's $20?
Correct.
It's nothing.
Correct. It's nothing.
And it's so much more valuable from a marketing perspective.
Correct. I think I can't remember who was saying this, but I think the founders at Airbnb, if you want to build a great business at the beginning, you do stuff that doesn't scale.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're doing. Business like Strand Bags would never be able to do this sort of stuff. Ubering luggage and bags to customers. It's very hard to manage that process. But for us at current stage, we're able to do something like that.
Yeah.
So once you figure out a way to scale, I think this is unbeatable.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. When we do the strategy component with a lot of our challenger brands, we talk about this thing in general.
Yeah.
Actually, one brand recently releasing an app for men's health. It's a really good app.
Yeah.
And a lot of their conversations are offline. Like they're there at a football club or a tennis club or whatever. And they're like, I learned this thing from this app or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, QR codes. You guys need QR codes because you need to have that ability for that person to share this app and this experience with that person in person. It's not going to get you millions of users, but it's going to connect a lot of those conversations, which are like 50% of the marketing activity that you're doing right now, rather than just relying on that person to go out and do that thing. So thinking about that sort of stuff, I think, is really, really cool. I remember seeing the stories that you guys had with the Ubers. I feel like it might have been around Christmas or something like that.
Yeah. We did a lot of those. Apart from that, me and Ethan would drive around and do deliveries ourselves. I remember not the Christmas just past, but previous one. I was driving a van with my dog on the passenger seat, and I was just driving around Melbourne and deliver cases, and people love it.
Yeah. I think Zoe said she was recently having to utilise the van. I heard it's a nice van.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's one of the best purchases we made.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So you're often looked at as the supply guy, not just the supply guy in the July business, but the guy who really gets supply chains in startup land. You indirectly, not officially, advise a bunch of startups when they chat to you about things. I've seen you often quoting that Bezos quote, "Your margin is my opportunity," and you sort of strike me just based on this conversation alone as a guy who likes the mechanics and things sort of marrying up.
Yeah.
Obviously, pre-COVID, D2C businesses have been huge, and it just accelerated that.
Yes.
After COVID.
Yeah.
So I was curious. We've gotten an insight as to some of your principles, but how would you quantify a number of principles that you have today for running a professional D2C business? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, I mean, there are several elements to running a successful D2C business. I think the very first thing is get your product right. Okay. I think that's the first thing, because if your product's shit, you only get the customer once. They will not come back to buy again. They will not refer to other people. That's the first one. Get your product right. And because it's D2C, you're working directly with your supplier, you'll be able to have the margin anyway. So I think that's important. Because you have the margin, then you can spend on acquisition. Yeah. I think find the most profitable channel for your product, for your business, and make sure you don't overspend on acquisition.
Okay, so basically, it sounds like you're saying don't worry too much about the price of the product, because the nature of the business model will mean that you have that margin there.
Correct.
Just get the product right.
Get the product right first, because don't worry too much, because you're working directly with the manufacturer. You are already having more margin or better margin comparing to your competitors.
Yeah, and you can build that little extra margin you need to get your profit on the top or more acquisition cost, etc. Okay.
Correct. And make sure that try to be profitable on your first purchase. Yeah. Because I oftentimes people say, the LTV is this much. People will come back. You can spend a little bit more on your acquisition. You just never know, right? Especially for e-commerce, physical goods. So we try to be as profitable as possible on the first purchase. Okay. So that that this is a sustainable business model. And number 3 is try to create products as fast as possible. Okay. Because if people have a good experience, and people want to come back to buy other stuff. Yeah. So have more products ready for them to purchase. Okay. So increase the average order value and LTV of this customer.
So when you say order as much stuff as possible, do you mean in terms of your actual supply chain and having that stock available?
Both. Having enough stock, not like as much as possible, but enough stock to keep up with your demand. Yeah. The second thing is make sure you develop as many SKUs, as many products as possible. So that's also important.
So the cart value increases.
Correct.
Yeah. So basically, you acquire a customer. You don't want them to just buy one product. You want them buying a slew of products or coming back to buy more products because you've spent that acquisition cost.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. The same thing, we recently, so Ethan and I, myself, we recently invested in a startup in Melbourne called Pair. So PAIRE.com.au. Yeah. They are a sock business. So they wanted to, when they first came to us and they said, we wanted to create the world's most comfortable socks. We loved the idea. And we were like, okay, what's the first range of products? They told us, and we said, yeah, great, but you need to quickly develop more products. And because if people come to the site and they only see wool and cotton socks, yeah, and if they're not into wool, they're probably not going to buy. Yeah. You want to be able to create multiple, products with different material, and also maybe same material but different products, or other categories. Yeah.
Colours, all that sort of stuff.
Of course.
Okay, so you're trying to capture a broader audience by creating more product, essentially.
Correct. Relevant products. So you can't do, like, for example, at July.
Relevant.
Correct. So we want to be able to launch a couch, and we would be, we only produce products the same quality standard, and relevant to travel, and relevant to trips. So yeah.
So you think that the long term, because this is one of the questions I had on product development, in the last 18 months you guys went from luggage to travel bags and accessories.
Correct.
Which was luckily initiated pre-COVID, which sort of underlines your point about having more products coming up, because you've got that customer originally, you've got a chance to bring something in that potentially could save you, in this case.
That's right.
So it's a hard one to ask, because I know that as a founder, you're not going to want to display or talk about too much of what you're doing. But from a product perspective, how far does the travel area go? Is it toiletries? Is it where does it stop for you guys?
It's not too hard. I mean, I can definitely talk openly about this. Anything to do with travel. So anything that can elevate your experience when you travel.
Okay.
A big trip, small trips. That's all products that we can do, or experiences. It doesn't have to be physical product. It can be, it can be digital product, can be experience. So when I look at travel, I look at, before travel, during travel, and after travel. There's so many opportunities. For example, the immediate thing I can think of that I want to get for myself is that I never have comfortable clothes when I travel.
Yeah.
That's great opportunity.
Yeah.
What is
comfortable yet appropriate?
Correct.
Yeah.
Appropriate as well.
Yeah.
What is the most comfortable clothes when you wear when you get onto a flight?
Yeah.
Also look stylish as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge opportunity for July. What do you wear in your hotel? That's another thing.
Yeah.
So what if we create this most comfortable travel pajamas?
Yeah. Travel wear.
Slippers.
I mean, look, you're totally right. Everyone loves Qantas pajamas.
Yes, everyone loves, and people take home and wear at home. People love it.
I think I don't know if they give it out in business, but I definitely know they give it out in first.
Yes, they do give it to business, and it's also a status thing when you wear it.
It's very much a status thing.
Yeah, correct.
It's so funny because they were selling that during the COVID lockdowns.
Yes.
Because people were obsessed with the pajamas, and it's smart. I reckon it's a smart idea to expand to that sort of stuff. So, okay, anything that relates to travel, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a certain timeline? Obviously, the business is going to be quieter now than it will be in, say, a year's time from now, when the majority of, let's say, at least the West and developed countries like China are vaccinated.
Yeah.
Do you intend to launch further products in the next year?
Yeah, definitely.
You've already got stuff in the pipe?
The focus for us right now is to develop more products, because we know by the time the travel come back, whether that's 6 months or 12 months,
you got to be ready.
We'll be ready.
Yeah,
we'll be ready. And one of the things, is if you look at luggage as a generic term, if you search on Google, and over the last several months during COVID, our rank from the 6th or 7th page all the way to 2nd page now.
Yeah, right.
So the SEO has been growing for us.
Yeah.
So
which Zoe is very good at.
Yeah. So,
she gets
a lot of credit on that. So that's one thing. That's just one of the many things we're getting ready for. So by the time the travel come back, and whenever people search for luggage, we always rank number 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that to me makes a lot of sense, and I would agree with that. I think we've been focused on developing new service lines in what was geared up to be the opening up this year, and I think it's proved pretty well. So yeah, I would 100% agree with that. It's funny you mentioned that ranking thing, because I had that recently. I searched July a couple of months ago when we were buying this gift for Lauren's dad, and then recently when I was doing the research for your interview, and I was like, oh shit, they're like ranking. And now also when you type in the word July, I don't know if this is because I've been on the website previously, but you guys rank number 1. Yeah, for the word July.
For the word July, both paid and non-paid. Yeah. So I think on SEO side we're ranked number 1.
Is so hard.
Yeah.
Like to rank.
What's harder is luggage. The term luggage.
It's highly competitive.
Highly competitive. But if you search, I think Zoe was telling us the other day as well, if you search carry-on luggage, I think we're on first page already.
Really?
But for the term luggage, we're on the 2nd page.
There you go.
So it's slowly coming up. Yeah.
Branding, we talk about Qantas pajamas. Branding is a big thing for you guys. I know when Athan was in, he mentioned that for him it was always about storytelling, doing the little things that like you said, don't scale.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like you're much the same. Much more on the side of doing the Airbnb type stuff, doing the stuff that doesn't scale. I think the story was that randomly Emily, Nathan Chan's partner, who I've actually done a bit of media training for, she had a mix-up with her zipper, like she'd done something wrong with her zipper, and you yourself went out and visited her.
I went to her place and fixed for her on the spot.
On the spot, that's right, which they were very impressed by. So we know what's important to you. I'm curious then, who are the leaders or who are your heroes when it comes to branding and business in particular?
Business in particular, I mean, I noticed that you got, Steve Jobs' book and the Everything Store, for Jeff Bezos.
Great book.
Great book. I loved it. I mean, the people I look up to, definitely I look at, Jeff Bezos, 20 years ago from their little office, with a handwritten Amazon sign to where he is today. I think, I love everything that, I think Jeff Bezos has
He's
created.
your guy.
Yeah, he's definitely one of my idols. He's definitely someone I look up to.
Siri's just going off.
Siri thought so. Yeah.
So Jeff Bezos is your guy.
Yeah. One of many, I would say.
Yeah, I would say just on that book as well, highly recommend it because there's a bunch of other books that came out of it as well.
Yeah.
One of the best ones that I just recently bought and have been skimming through because I'll read for an hour each night is a book called Creation. It's referenced a lot in that book, and it's this idea of like modules that can be grouped together, which they then used in AWS.
Yeah.
So, I'd highly recommend it. If anyone is interested in e-commerce, that's the book.
Yeah.
That's the book you got to look at.
Awesome.
Is there anyone else that really lately has been influencing you?
Lately has been influencing me. I can't think of anyone right now, just because every day we're just like so into our own business.
Your own little world.
Yeah, our own little world.
Do you get much time to sort of sit back and pause with that sort of stuff?
Definitely. We do have a lot of time, to pause and think about, just reflect ourselves. Within July, I think a lot of branding stuff I look up to, to Ethan, because he is one of the best in the industry. I think when it comes to branding, when it comes to brand marketing. So I learn a lot from him, on day to day, which is very, very, I think, lucky and fortunate.
Yeah. Do you personally have any hobbies or anything like that?
Well, I think.
Do you have time for it?
Yeah, I have time. I love hiking. I used to go a lot.
You're right.
But not so much now because I got a kid.
Yeah.
So that's taking a lot of time.
I was going to say, I'm surprised you don't potentially have a boat.
Boats. It's definitely on the list.
It's on the list?
One day. Driving is also another hobby of mine.
Yeah,
I love sports car.
Okay.
I bought my first Porsche sports car, I think when I was 21 or 22. I'm very into Porsche and I love sports
I'm obsessed
car.
with Porsche.
I love. And,
that's my dream car.
Yeah.
What do you have?
I had a Cayman at the time.
Okay.
When I was 21, 22, but after I got married, switched to SUV. So I drive a Porsche Cayenne now.
A Cayenne, yeah, because I've said to Lauren that...
You're a Tesla person, I think.
You reckon?
Yeah, I reckon, yeah.
Okay, so this is what I've had recently is the Porsche Taycan.
Yeah.
The electric one.
Yeah, Mission E.
It looks... it just looks amazing. I've been watching like demo
$250,000, right? $250,000?
Yeah.
Expensive.
Very expensive.
Very expensive.
But it looks amazing. For me, like Porsche's like it's just the back look of like a Carrera S or something like that.
Yeah.
Is what I really, really like. There's other things I don't like about Porsche that I think Tesla has done a little bit better. Like I think the back of the Porsche for the people sitting in the back isn't comfortable.
Yeah.
So Lauren's constantly reminding me of that. She's like, like if we have kids soon, like you'll never be able to, like, you can take them for a couple of years, but when they grow up, like they won't fit in it. So
Correct. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the Tesla thing because that's the alternative I've thought about.
Yeah. I think that would be my next
car.
Yeah.
Which one?
Maybe Model X.
Okay.
Yeah. They got like a massive change, I think, next year's model.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, the thing that fascinates me about electric cars is the amount of torque that you have immediate, because I'm an acceleration guy. I'm not a top speed guy. Mm-hmm. I love being able to move quick, but I don't need to go ultra fast simply because here
It's
you
100.
can't even do it.
Correct.
You know, unless you're driving to Sydney, the fastest you can go is like 110, 120 or something
Correct.
like that.
Not like Germany.
Legally,
you know,
yeah.
highway.
Germany would make sense. So I'm all about that initial speed. So yeah, that's why Teslas intrigue me. But the Taycan, like I said, I think we just bought a new car. We got a Skoda.
Yeah.
The Kamiq, which is a sort of crossover SUV.
Yeah.
That'll be Lauren's car. They're amazing. It's sort of like an Audi and a VW had a baby.
Yeah.
And, you know, all like quartz grey, looks pretty nice. So
Yeah.
it's got really good acceleration. I quite like that. So
That's good. I love acceleration as well. I think me too. I think it's important when you want to overtake somebody.
Exactly. Or like you're at the lights and you're in a bit of a rush and you just want to move. Because some people really take their time from red lights.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So there's a lot there. I feel like we could keep going on and on and on and on about stuff. But I wanted to ask you, you've done a lot of these interviews by now, or a few interviews by now. What do you wish you got people that, like, what do you wish that they asked you in these interviews? Like, you get a lot of stuff about supply chain stuff and business and all that. What's the topic that you could talk for half an hour about? Is it cars?
I think definitely not cars. I think I would say if there was one question I wish I got asked, and I think it's important for people to know, is what makes somebody a great entrepreneur?
Okay.
I think that's something that I think is a great question, because people sometimes, you know, a lot of people come to me, or, you know, in general, is that I want to become a founder. I want to become an entrepreneur. And I look at, you know, these people, what these people are doing. I don't think these guys are founders. You know, they're smart people, but sometimes, you know, founders are for completely different, you know, type of people. I think what makes someone a great founder or great entrepreneur, I think the obsession for detail.
Yeah.
The obsession for detail. I think that's a very, very important thing.
Which permeates through their obsessiveness with the product in general. I would agree with that. I mean, I was up to 1 a.m. doing emails or something last night because I just couldn't be satisfied not getting, like, I've just had one of those weeks because we were away all weekend where I'm just not on top of stuff. Yeah. And I just can't sit still while I'm in that situation.
Correct. You get like that anxiety.
The anxiety, yes. The anxiety.
Correct. I get that all the time. If I feel like I'm wasting time, or if I feel like I'm not getting stuff done. Yeah. It's that obsession. Yeah.
And once I've done it, I know I'm happy, I'm content. I can sleep, I can relax, I can do all these things that are what normal humans do. So I think if you don't have that, it's very, very hard to do well. Yeah, correct. And above the obsession for detail, I think it's I think it's dedication and execution. Yeah, very important, because when Uber came out, so many people say, "Oh, I had the same idea." Oh, that was I had the exact idea 10 years, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Everyone says that.
Yeah, everyone says that. Yeah, it's the person who can actually execute. Yeah.
And to me, execution is just dedication.
Correct.
Because it's just having a go, then learning your shit, then getting better, then learning your shit, then getting better, and you just keep going and going and going. And you never give up because it's endless.
Yeah, correct.
Endless improvement. Endless.
Correct.
Performance. I think.
Yeah, and sometimes there a person reach out to me and say, "Hey, I've got a great idea. I just want to get your opinion on something." I say, "Sure. I'm happy to help, and I'm always." I'm always happy to help anyone who come up. Then they will be like, "Oh, can you sign NDA?" I'm like, why would I care? I don't care. You know what I mean? If I have a good idea and I'll share with people I trust, with people I think will give me great advice. If these guys can, if these guys jump over me and execute it, I'll give these guys credit, because these guys can actually execute it. I wasn't be able to do it faster than these guys. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like that kind of
What do you do in that scenario? Do you sign the NDAs or you don't bother?
I just don't bother. Yeah. I just don't care. I've never seen anyone, the NDA people, have ever succeeded. Yeah. I mean, the people I spoke to anyway. Yeah. Yeah,
NDAs to me are an immediate signal for a wantrepreneur.
Yeah, wantrepreneur, exactly.
Because they've spent more time getting the NDA. They've probably spent more time finessing the NDA than they have just building the product.
idea. Yeah, correct.
Which is is very telling to me.
Correct.
I've had with one prospective customer, and I was like, oh, this is not going to work out. I can just tell, and they didn't become a customer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think NDAs are always a good warning point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, rapid fire questions to finish things off. I don't want to hold you in here too much longer.
Yeah.
Morning and evening routine. What's it look like?
Every morning I read a few websites I always read to get the latest news, both what's happening in the world and also what's happening in the tech world. TechCrunch is a good one. I read, and I also read Business Insider, what's happening, the top 10 things you need to know in Australia, stuff like that. And after that, I have coffee, I walk my dog, and sometimes I walk, my baby with the dog together early in the morning. So that was nice. Every evening, I try to be home, before 6:30 or 7, so that I can, bath my baby. Yeah. And that was I enjoy it a lot. Yeah. So those are the main things in my life.
Are you watching anything particular at the moment at night?
I'm not watching anything particular at the moment.
Yeah. Are you a Netflix, YouTube guy?
I'm not big on those things.
Really?
Yeah, I was very big on Netflix. I was really big on YouTube, but not really. I'm on the phone most of the time now.
I'd agree with that. I think I spend the majority of my time on TikTok now, which is ridiculous. I think
very addictive.
Very, very addictive. Like if you look at the hours, it's in comparison to all other apps, it's just ridiculous. And I can make the excuse that it's for work, so that's a problem. All right, last question for you. What's been the best purchase under 200 Aussie dollars?
Good question. I would say the side table I bought from King Furniture under $200. I think that was really a good purchase because not only it integrate with my sofa that I bought from King Living, at the same time it can charge my phone, like wireless charge my phone. It's $200 because I think I bought it when it was on 50% off.
You're right.
Yeah, I thought that was a very good purchase.
So when did you buy that?
Maybe like last year.
Wow.
Maybe like last year.
Yeah, because that would have made sense because all those brands would have been really struggling last year.
Yeah, and they got like 50% off. I was like, oh, that's rare, and I definitely wanted to take advantage of that. And the side table integrated with my sofa and can charge my phone wirelessly. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. How does it build a charge?
It's got basically a charger.
Okay.
From the bottom.
Wow, I'm going to take a look at that.
Yeah, you should.
That's because when you think about my night, when I am normally not working insane hours like I am at the moment, I'm on my Brosa couch, I'm lying down. Yeah. And I'm just on my phone typically. Or watching YouTube or something like that.
Yeah, nice.
Rich, where can people find you online?
Well, they can reach me on LinkedIn. It's Rich Lee. Or just email, richard@july.com. I'm quite responsive if I find it interesting. Yeah. And I'm always happy to help if anyone just come up with a question. Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll link July, obviously. We'll link Brosa.
Yeah.
All of the things we've discussed are in the show notes in the show. But Rich, thanks for coming in.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode. If you do like it, please subscribe, and of course, like if you're watching the YouTube video as well. We'd really appreciate that. You can also find our Clips channel in the description. For audio, if you're not already listening, you can search Uncommon on Podcast, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts quite easily. For video, if you're not watching, you can search Uncommon on YouTube. And for behind the scenes takes and clips on social media, then definitely check out @uncommon_show on Instagram. But otherwise, look, thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time, thanks for listening.